So we're going to look at skill in action. And especially I want to talk about it as interaction. Because the most complicated and full of trouble type of action that we have is interaction with other people. So it's about diplomacy. Very, very few people learn diplomacy. And the word diplomacy has acquired a lot of different meanings in different cultures. It's interesting that the English language is so varied because it's the main language spoken by people of many, many different cultures. And in the process, words have changed their meaning, particularly the word diplomacy. So, do you know what diplomacy is? It's about negotiation. So, diplomacy is applied in circumstances of conflict. And conflict arises when there is disagreement about your rights, about your position, about what's yours, what's not yours, these type of things. So there gets to be conflict over certain material things and conflict about what you can and cannot do, what you can and cannot say, what you can and cannot wear, what you can and cannot think. So diplomacy occurs in the context of a playing field that is not level. You know what I mean by a level playing field? So we ideally would like to live in a world which is a level playing field, and that doesn't have much to do with geography. It has to do with the social arrangements. So as you may remember, we are learning these things in a context where there are many things that are said in religions which are incorrect. Starting off with human beings come in two types, males and females. And so the first bias that we live in is a bias where males and females are not considered equal. And so there is a bias that favors males and disfavors females in many, many areas, and it's global. Then we have other biases, which are racial biases. We have other kinds of social biases, like if you have X amount of dollars, you are disproportionately favored by the law. And so there's a non-level playing field in legal matters also. Theoretically, it's a level playing field, but practically it's not. And this is because in most of the cultures, there is a vast difference between people's social attitudes and the system of government under which they live. Vast difference. And since we're in United States, did you all read the Constitution? Do you remember what it says? No. If you became a naturalized citizen of the US, you would have had to read it in order to get your citizenship. But once you've got it, you can forget the Constitution. Actually, better not to forget it, because you need to know what the Constitution is, which covers how things are done in this particular jurisdiction. And the social attitudes are very much founded upon historical ideas, which go back many, many, many generations. And as we know here in the United States, what's called the First Nations, they don't have much rights or much respect or many things. And it's mostly a country of immigrants. And so immigrants have been coming here for some time from some places. Then we have a whole long history called slavery, which makes an impact, a big effect. And there's a whole thing called colonialism, which has a huge effect, endless effect. And so then you have religions which come with immigration. So the attitudes that are contained in religions tend to belong to about 1,000 years in the past, because that's when all this was set down and written down and decided upon. And so whatever people thought in those days stayed, is written into the scriptures, and then it influences people very much. And this constitution came in 1760, more or less, give or take a little bit. I'm not very good in dates, but around that time, following a revolution. And in that, the idea of kings was taken out and republic came instead. We the people, it says so on your passport, but it doesn't say the whole rest of it. It just says that part, right? And so it's very important when you are studying these things to look at it in a large historical, cultural context. And so the more you are aware about things, the more you're able to understand where people are coming from when you are in interaction and relationship. Because it's very, very difficult for a person to be independent of all the influences that have shaped and formed their heritage, right? And it all is reinforced by how you're raised in your family. It's reinforced by your religious circumstances, and it's reinforced in your education. And all of these reinforcements correspond to what I call prevailing cultural attitudes. And where you have a country which is made of many, many waves of immigration, you have actually a more level playing field than in other places where you don't. So in that sense, it's quite good. It corresponds quite well with yoga, and it's less difficult to navigate your way through. But as circumstances become tighter, economic situation is tighter, political situation is tighter, then the playing field is tilted further and further in favor of whoever has, relatively speaking, a privileged position, and against those who have a less privileged position. And so this is your shark-infested waters that you have to negotiate. And so you need skill in negotiating these things. So the key in yoga in terms of skill in action, in terms of diplomacy, diplomatic relations between either soul and another soul, is that you need to be colorblind, gender blind, culture blind, blind to all the things that cause the variations in the tilt of the playing field. And first of all, you have to look at yourself and identify how the playing field is tilted in your favor or against your favor, to identify your situation regarding those things. So you may be in a body that is a privileged type. You know, you think you're supposed to be a wasp, right? A white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. And male is better than female, right? And so you can see the religious impact, the race impact, and the sort of cultural origin impact. That's the highest bit. And then when you go to all the other opposite of that, then it's the lowest bit. And then behind all of that, here are you on the unlevel playing field as a soul. And all the other souls are actually your siblings, but they tend to not look at it like that. But you look at it like that. These are all my siblings. And their perception of me is through a lot of filters, you see. And these filters take the form of projection. So as you're developing skill in action, you also have to take into consideration what people project what onto you, and then what they see is their projection. They don't really see you. So if you know what they're looking at when they see you, then you're not surprised when they see you differently than how you see you. You see? And because you know this, you can compensate for it. Because skill has to do with being equipped internally to make the compensations so that your interaction brings you into a relationship that is much more egalitarian than circumstances permit. So you are influencing the circumstances by compensating for the tilt on the unlevel playing field. And so for that, there is something called self-honor. And you know that Raj Yoga is about being a king. And so a king is someone who operates in self-honor. You know who you are, you honor who you are, and if someone else is projecting something else onto you, you neutralize it. This is a very tricky skill to acquire, but it comes with skill and diplomacy. There are also some spiritual laws that apply to this. First of all, it's important for the individual who's practicing yoga to see themselves as exactly as you are. That means you're a spiritual being. You do not have a body color in your soul. You do not have a gender color in your soul. You do not have one particular culture in your soul. But you think of yourself as someone who has had many births. And chances are you've been everything everywhere, right? So nobody can really label you correctly. But you can label yourself. I am a spiritual being, been around a long time. And I know this and that and the other because I've been there. I've been male, I've been female, I've been black, white, green, pink, purple, Indian, Chinese, African, European, whatever. It's in me. And so I take that part of me that corresponds with who I'm interacting with so that there can be resonance. Right? That is a very useful thing. And you're looking all the time for common ground that you have with your sibling. You're not concerned about age differences, religious differences, cultural differences, but you're looking at the human being, neither male nor female. It's a being. And a being is made up of love, peace, power, purity, and bliss, right? So this is the fundamental of a human being. So you see that. Then you also pick up all of the different, dings. Life gives you dings. So there's all the dings on the soul, distortions, wounds, traumas, karmic accounts, many, many things. So that this essential state of the soul has been distorted and then it also been weakened by time. Because the effect of time on beings as well as on objects is to cause deterioration. Right? If you have an old car and you're doing your taxes, you take out a deterioration amount, right? So you have so you have to bear in mind the deterioration that's happened to you, that's happened to everybody else. And so one of the problems is we live in a culture which believes, in spite of all indications to the contrary, in evolution and progress, right? Yes? And so it means that you expect people not to be deteriorating. You expect them to be rising all the time. You expect everything to be getting better. And then when you look at it in terms of time causes deterioration, you have to take into consideration that the whole human race and all the planet is all deteriorating. And so our interaction with each other needs to take that into consideration, excuse me, as well as the unlevel playing field. And on top of that, there are a lot of concepts which are untrue, but which people hold to be true in terms of who's more valuable than whom by external considerations as opposed to internal considerations. In skill in interaction, it's very important to be a good judge of character. So you have to ask yourself, am I a good judge of character? Can I understand who is in front of me? What motivates them, what their wounds are, how they feel about themselves, how they feel about life, what's happened to them over the course of eternity. You know, it's very, very helpful to be able to read these things. And these things are deeply buried and totally hidden behind masks. Everybody has a lot of masks. And these masks can sometimes be called looking good syndrome. Have you heard about that? So you have to dress a certain way, you have to make up a certain way, have a certain hairstyle, certain shoes, certain watch, certain this, certain that, and then you'll be considered okay. Whether you are or not is neither here nor there. So you have to be able to see through all of this fakery, because it's fake, and see what's behind. And behind that, you see that this is your sibling. This is very important to realize. This is your siblings. And what is the fundamental relationship between siblings, or the law of relationship between siblings? What do you owe a sibling? Minimum. You owe a sibling love and regard, right? And so your first approach to another human being, good, bad, or indifferent, whatever, love and regard, starts with that. No matter what they did or didn't do, or whatever is projected on them, no matter any of that, switch off your projector, see this being who is your sibling and to whom you owe minimum love and regard. And then begin the interaction. And as you interact with the person, you need to bear in mind something that I think we have in the Constitution: innocent until proven guilty, not the other way around. But prevailing social attitudes in the unlevel playing field make you say guilty until proven innocent, and even then still guilty. This is the eye through which we look, the lens. And so the work that a yogi does on the self is to detect where I am still doing those things and fix it. Because you can, if you want to. But if you do that, you will be going out of line from all the other people in your tribe. And so they won't like it. And they will punish you for it. Right? So you need to be quite resilient if you want to do that. But your diplomacy has to extend in such a way that you can maintain good relationships with your tribe and still act according to your these principles. And so this is where diplomacy comes in very well. And it's all to do with language. What words you select to use, in what circumstances, what tone of voice you use, what you choose to say, what you choose to not say, how much you will say, how much you will not say. This is all very big skill known as diplomacy, so that you maintain good relationships. And if you don't do that, the relationship can break down easily, because people mostly are fragile regarding the reality of who they are. The reality of who they are includes, all these distortions and different kinds of damage. One of the things we learn in Raj Yoga that's really very important, and which doesn't exist in other concepts, religions, or any, as far as I can tell. It might, but I haven't found it. And that is that it's very important not to absorb negativity which is sent in your direction. And you need to really develop that skill, because depending on cultural differences and so on, certain things, someone may say something, another person will take it as an insult, but it's not intended as an insult. And it's just because of variation of cultural norms. Someone may do something intentionally to disempower you, to make you feel bad about who you are and what you are. And it's intentional. And you can also use your own power of intention to keep it outside you. It's very important to know that you have the option of not taking it in. But in order to apply that option, you need to be skilled in altering the thing that is sent your way, intended to harm you, and turn it into something that is to your advantage. We call this the power of transformation, because something is coming with a negative intention, and you have to be extremely high speed to catch it, turn it into something else, and receive it as that other thing. For example, someone shoots you, sends a bullet in your direction, got to be fast to catch it before it hits, right? And catch it, turn it into a flower, receive it as a flower. This is called skill in action. So when somebody is telling you something which is designed to hurt you, you have to very rapidly understand that they're doing that because of many, many things that are influencing them to the point where they cannot see you as you are. All they can see is this stuff which they project onto you, and then their negativity is to that, which is actually not you. So you don't have any very good reason to accept it, but it's intended. And so you have to be faster than it. So you have to be somewhat hypersonic. You know about hypersonic weapons? 10 times the speed of sound. and words come at the speed of sound. So you have an opportunity to be faster. And sometimes you can tell in advance how someone feels about you before they say something negative towards you, correct? And so you know. So you position yourself. Okay, this bullet is coming. I'm ready. I'll turn it into a flower. Let's go. Okay, done. But it's a very rapid thing. And if you're not paying attention, you'll miss the signals. Then you'll get hit. Then that's called unskilled. So, of course, you have so many instances of getting hit, and then you have a number of bullet holes in your soul. So, you know, you have to repair them and go back into the fray and practice to take these things, change them into something that is more suitable for you to receive, that corresponds with your honor. You must honor yourself. I know. I am a pure, peaceful, powerful, loveful, blissful being of light, and therefore I will receive things that correspond to that. So whatever you send in my direction, I will take it as something that corresponds to that, you see? And that you have to do this switching around. And so that requires creativity, it requires imagination, it requires all sorts of little tricks and trickery for you to do it like that. But if you doubt yourself, you won't do it. You rather believe that what the other person doing has more validity than who you are. Because the culture is saying that. But now you're creating a different culture. And the culture is that I am me, and whoever it is my sibling and must see me as I am, sooner or later. See? And so there is another spiritual law which is very, very interesting in this. And that is that you decide how a person sees you. You let them know. If you don't let them know, then they will use their default preconceptions, prejudices, or whatever. And so it's incumbent upon you to let people know, this is me, this is how you have to treat me. That's the way it is. And they'll do it. You don't do it verbally, you do it vibrationally. Because much is communicated by vibration. How you look at a person. Do you look at them straight in the eye? Seeing the sibling. When you do that, you make them look at you the way you're looking at them, because it's influence. So you influence other people by how you see them. And this is how I want you to see me. Right? You can do that, right? And when you're operating like that, you'll also have to do the same thing with your people of your tribe who are also projecting all kinds of other stuff, right? And so you're sort of teaching everybody little by little to see you as you are, because you see them as they are. And there's a little well-known phrase to describe this law, and it says that as is how you see the world, that's how the world becomes. Up to you, not up to it. That means it's all about being proactive in a way that corresponds to the essence of what you are. the vibration, the resonance of what you are, because when you're resonating and vibrating with what you are, that's called you're being true to yourself. And when other people are looking at you through all these lenses and projections and whatnot, it's actually false. And something true is, by definition, more powerful than something false. Take the concept of darkness. And in opposition of that, the concept of light, you see. You only get darkness when there isn't any light. And so light is, by definition, more influential than darkness. Because darkness can't appear in a room where the light's on, you know. I mean, you have to turn the light off, then darkness. So you keep your light turned on and project your clarity, your light, your purity into the atmosphere, and how people see you is very much something that will reflect that back to you, you see. And when you're excuse me, when you're looking at people like this, they feel something, and it kind of drops some of those barriers and so on. And in France, where I live, there's a lot of social rules that correspond to this. And one very simple one is that you have to say good day to everyone. So if you go in a shop, you want to buy something, you ask the person, how much is this? They won't talk to you. You'll say, oh, they're very arrogant. But actually, it's because you didn't say good day. How much is this? It's kind of interesting. So, and it's kind of in the culture, but it's interesting because people who come there from outside, they don't do it, you see, and then they get blocked, you see, because you have to say good day. That means, may I come into your space? I'm coming with good intention, good wishes. And then secondly, what I want to talk about is interesting, right? Diplomacy. I see. It's giving respect and love to the person in a very, very subtle way. But it's become an important part of the culture. And if somebody doesn't know, they won't do it. But once you know, it's no skin off your nose to do it. Feels comfortable. But if you come from a culture where nobody says good day to anybody, everybody is unacceptable unless they check all kinds of boxes. So I think it's quite good to say, okay, everybody is innocent until proven guilty. How you get proven guilty is you do something to let the other person know that you have some issue against them. But if you don't have any issue against them, there's nothing to stop relationship being good. See? And if you say, well, I don't like this person because of their religion, it's like, what are you talking about? You don't know anything about their religion. And how you base your discernment of who that person is based on their religious practices. It doesn't make any sense at all, you see. Well, I don't like this person because they live in that part of town. What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Your criteria by which you judge people is not valid. So this is why in in yoga as skill in action, you really need to know what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. What's coherent, consistent, what's incoherent, inconsistent, self-contradictory, double standards, all this stuff doesn't fly. And when you do that, you're going against your conscience. Because your conscience will tell you otherwise. But if your conscience is dead, it doesn't tell you anything. And then you have to rely on prevailing social attitudes because you don't have a conscience anymore. It's dead. Do you want a dead conscience? Not really, right? It's the most reliable thing you have. You don't want to kick it out. So these are all things to take into consideration, which allow you to be progressively more refined, more diplomatic, more skilled in interaction with people, with nature, circumstances, with the divine, which creates a very sustainable, harmonious relationship in spite of all the things and problems and traumas and so on that everybody has gone through, I see. Because then there's a great reduction of this, what we call ego clash. Because the masks that everyone wears, this is called the ego mask. So you put this mask on, go out into the world, which is not your real self. And then the other person comes towards you with their mask, which is not their real self. And all you see is the mask. And there's very frequent, easy ego clash. But when you come with virtue, it's very difficult to have a virtue clash. Very difficult. Try having a war between love and peace. Very difficult. You can't get them to go against each other. But this ego and that ego, no problem. Go to a clash really quickly. And so a very important part of the yoga practice is to really look and see, am I operating from an ego mask which doesn't correspond to who I really am, but which I put so that people don't trouble me? Because behind it, I'm wounded, vulnerable, unsure of myself, insecure, etc., etc., etc. So I have to have a big mask, and you have a whole complex set of things which all add up to your mask. And then you go in there like that with a big placard over in front of you and say, this is me, which is not, you see. And this is why you need to be a good judge of character, because you have to have a penetrating eye that can penetrate right through that mask, understand that this is how they're protecting themselves, which they have every right to do. But that what you want to talk to is not the mask, you want to talk to the person. It's more interesting. It's real. And your relationship is not with the mask. Why you want a relationship with a placard? A relationship with another being. And so you slowly develop skill in doing it that way, right? Do you like that? And then it helps you also to be more confident to drop your own mask, because actually they're in the way, but they were put up for a very good reason. Still they're in the way. So Bring them down slowly, slowly. Say, hello, this is me. Otherwise, we say, I am a highly dangerous dinosaur, and if you come anywhere near me, I will take you out. So be careful, right? So then they say, well, I'm another highly dangerous dinosaur, so let's have it out. Then you get conflict. And behind it, the poor old real self says, oh, what about me? I just want to be a pure, peaceful, powerful, loveful being of light and have a nice time with you. Instead, we have to have war. Excuse me, not required. I mean, it's more pleasant to be in harmony and to appreciate the differences, the variations. It adds to the beauty. You don't want to have a human race made of clones, do you? So boring. So this is why we need this big variation. So I'm going to stop there. Om Shanti.